Hey, I'm Drew, and this is the Drew Peterson Podcast, home to one chairlift ride, ski pole microphone, and real story at a time. This chairlift chat is on a gondola, so we are calling it a gondola gab, and it's with Robert Gallery, a former NFL player with a wild path and story. What made Robert famous was dominance on the football field. He was an All-American in college, drafted with the second overall pick in the 2004 NFL draft, and he played 8 seasons in the NFL. First for the Oakland Raiders, and then the Seattle Seahawks. So how'd we end up here? With a famous football player on my niche little outdoor world podcast on a chairlift, or a gondola. Because Robert and I have a lot in common. Obviously, as humans, not necessarily as athletes. Following his football career, Robert went into a severe spiral into darkness, with mental health, the after effects of brain injuries, and terrifying bouts of rage, suicidal thoughts, and all of that layered on top of the realities of retirement. Robert got help, renovated his life, and has since become an awesome advocate and spokesperson of mental health, and particularly of psychedelic treatment, with Ibogaine being an integral part of his journey. I'm really excited to share this one with you. I promise this will resonate whether you care one bit about football or not, psychedelics or not. This episode and this conversation has something for every single human on this planet. Before we drop in, a quick note from this episode's sponsor. We hear mental health awareness all the time, but awareness doesn't just mean knowing something exists. It means wanting to engage and do something about it. So my definition of mental health awareness is giving a fuck. I started making these I give a fuck about mental health hats to fund my last film, Feel It All, about mental health. And ever since then, I've been receiving messages from people, not just that they're their favorite hats, but that they've really been helping start conversations and create space for real, honest vulnerability. That's pretty awesome that can just come from a hat. Now, behind the scenes, I've been working to turn I Give a Fuck About Mental Health into more of a standalone brand so that it can help more people. So stay tuned for more of that. But in the meantime, I wanted to offer you as a listener an exclusive discount on the hats. So you can grab one of these OG hats using code POD20 for 20% off at checkout. And that is, of course, in the show notes and just about everywhere else. All right, let's raise the bar. Keep your tips up and drop in. Robert, we are skiing, snowboarding. Most people know you as a former NFL football player. It's kind of what comes up when people Google you. You played at Iowa. You end up being the second overall draft pick. You got the award for the best interior offensive lineman in NCAA. And then you went on to play 8 years in the NFL. But in the realm that I've met you, that's not really who you are. It's part of who you are, but it's just part of your identity. How do you kind of reckon with that being such a dominating part of your identity? Even though now, like, I see you as a husband, a dad, and a guy who really cares about himself and his community. How do you reckon with that identity component?
I think, as time goes on, it gets a little easier because I've been able to work through, because that was my identity, right? And that's how I saw myself for a very long time, even after I retired, because that's all I know. That's all I knew. And that's when I look in the mirror, when I looked in the mirror, that's what I saw. I saw a football player, right? And so the time and seeing new things, meeting new people, and then going through life experiences has taught me, like, hey, that was just a part of my life. It seemed like my whole life to that point, because it was. But now there's so much more to me as a person, and the healing I've done, has opened up my eyes that, hey, that's a very small part of who I am, and now it's really not much a part of me at all. So I do find it comical now that when people are like, oh, you're this, and I was like, oh shit, I did do that. Yeah, I don't forget it, but it's also like I see all the other things I'm doing, and I see the value as a husband and a father, and in those aspects, it's been a very interesting journey.
It's also that intensity and it's that all-consuming piece of you that made you succeed as a football player, but it's helping you succeed in other things. Sometimes I kind of struggle with it, reckoning with my identity as a professional skier, because I built everything around that. It's small fish and it's different than being a football player. But now I look at it as kind of like I'm just like growing myself. And so it's not even like that disappears. It's just like becoming a smaller piece of the pie because the pie is growing. Does that resonate?
Absolutely. It's when we were in our sports, right? That's all you could do. That's all, to be successful, that's what you had to do, and that's everything else was secondhand, right? It was even when we had one of our daughters when I was playing, and it was like, yeah, I'm a father, but like this is my career. This is what I have to come home and like I have to go to bed. I have to, right? And right or wrong, that's what you have to do, especially as you get later in your career, right? To take care of yourself, to be able to continue to do what you want to do. Because it was also feeding our family, and it was what I wanted to do and who I was. But as you learn that there's these other things, right? Like you learn as you move on that it doesn't need to consume you, right? And that's why I try and be good at things and get away from I got to be great, right? It's like when I started snowboarding. Once I retired, it's like I got to be the best, right? So I'd go spend hours doing it and killing myself. I was 320 pounds still from my playing days, and just thrashing myself trying to learn how to snowboard, and coming off 3 surgeries that year from when I retired. And so it's like I don't need to do that. I don't have to be the greatest at this. Like, and that was some of the ego I let go. Like, oh, I want to be a good person. I want to do things that are bringing joy and fulfillment, and getting rid of that mindset of like you have to be all in on this one thing, because you can be partially in and be good at a lot of things.
Yeah, totally. Ironically, like for me, it's the same thing with learning to snowboard. Like I've skied my whole life and I absolutely suck on a snowboard, and it's so good to be a beginner. It's awesome. So the way that we really connected was in the realm of mental health. And I think that it's pretty cool how much similarity that we have there. I think it's a lot of what I've felt of, feeling less alone, feeling seen. When did you know that mental health and the brain injury component that we both share as well after your playing days was coming to a T? Was there a moment when you realized this has gone, farther than I ever could have imagined, and that this is a serious problem?
Yeah, I think for me it was when I hit rock bottom, right? I was going through all these things. I didn't know why these things were happening, right? I didn't know why my rage was so intense, why my kids laughing would trigger me to want to make them stop, and giggling, right? This joy coming from a kid, and why did it give this negative feeling for me? And so as those things started happening, and then the conversations, right? Like when things got really bad, the conversations with my wife that, hey, I'm a burden on this family, pretty much telling her that they'd be better off without me. And so then hearing yourself say that, and I meant it in the moment, but hearing that, you're like, oh, there's something going on, right? And there's something, right? And when you're in it, people are like, how did you not recognize? How did you not think you had brain damage? You don't think of that stuff when you're going through something dark, right? And yes, do I have damage from my playing days? Absolutely. But the affecting this, thinking that, having suicide nightmares, having ideation, did I think that? No, because I was so entrenched in what was going on. And so, when I finally broke down and said, hey, this is not right, something's going on, I need help, and told my wife that, it was like, that I admitted that I was struggling rather than just trying to grind through it and like, I'll be fine. Like, I got to deal with this. But the fact that I'm crying in my driveway, telling my wife I need help and something's not right, that was kind of opened the door for me to lead into, being healthier and all the things that I've done since then.
Dude, thanks for even saying that part about crying in your driveway in front of your wife. Like for strong masculine men to not just admit that, but like own it. One of the reasons that I look to you as a role model, especially as a male role model too, is in the ways that you've shared your story, that you include the component of suicidal ideation and death ideation. Why do you think it's important that we talk all the way deep to that component of mental health?
I think it's, first of all, it's probably a selfish reason for myself, because if I, as we talked, if you half do something, right, you're really not healing from it, right? If you just half go into something. So I can sit here and talk, for me personally about, you know, my feelings and being depressed and that, but the real root of it is the dark stuff, right? Until you talk about that, especially for me, till I was able to talk about it, that helped me get over it, right? In years past, I would not have been able to talk about having suicidal thoughts or wanting to harm my children, right? Because I didn't want to be judged, or I thought it was wrong, but that's part of my healing now, because it was a part of my life. Thank God I didn't do anything, right, to my wife or kids or myself, right? But if you're gonna help yourself first, you got to be completely honest with what's going on. And then I've learned with telling my story, for others too. I don't want it to, right? They may not be where I was, right? And that's okay. But I also want them to know, right? Because if I'm just talking about the surface level things and they're deep, right? They're not going to feel comfortable, because I've been there. They're not going to feel comfortable talking about it, because I would hide that, right? My friends, before I started talking about it, it was all surface level. And I'm like, I can't tell them that I'm right. Like that these things that I think and have almost acted on, right? They're going to think I'm nuts. But then when someone opened up to me, I'm like, holy shit, this is okay. Right. And that took a military friend, a guy I met, and he told me the darkest, deepest stuff. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. It took him doing that for me to be like, I can talk about this. And so that's why I think it's very important to talk about all of it. And because it's not unnormal, it's not, it should be normal to talk about it. And it's not other people have those feelings and those thoughts.
100%. You said all of that so damn well. And it's true, because all those components of ourselves and the shame that comes with them really thrives in silence. Giving a voice to it's so important. And suicidal ideation is a component of that. And we have to normalize that just as much as we normalize any other element of mental health. So one of the components too of your story is the way that you found treatment. You end up finding treatment in part because of the stories of other people too, of James Hetfield, the lead singer of Metallica, of Marcus Luttrell, lone survivor, and then Marcus Capone, another Navy SEAL. Now that you are in the position you are to share your story, how do you see that importance of storytelling and helping other people feel seen?
I think those guys, for me, first of all, they were friends or became friends because of that. But with a guy like James, he is, obviously known all over the world, has had a huge career, but he's also dealt with his struggles, his mental health struggles, his alcoholism, all these things. And when I got to know him as a person, right, first of all, because I met him years and years ago, we became friends, but I met him as a person, not the rock star, not the party guy, the drinker, who everybody else saw him as. Like when you had deep conversations, like, holy shit, this guy struggles, right? And everyone gets that in their head, right? You meet someone you idolize, right? Like I was like, oh shit, that's James Hetfield of Metallica, right? When I met him in the airport. Then I got to know him as a person. I'm like, oh wow, like he's trapped too. Like doesn't matter what he does or the success he's had, people have their own struggles. So to hear him talk about it, and then to be able to open up to him, and then as my healing journey went on, when I met Marcus Capone, and I heard him on Marcus Luttrell's podcast. I'm listening to these guys. I'm like, these guys are talking about it, right? And I'm hearing. I still wasn't comfortable talking about it, but I listened to them and the struggles they'd been through and all these stories. And in full circle, and that's who I reached out to get help, right? I reached out to Marcus Capone and his vets organization, ended up doing treatment with Marcus Luttrell, right? All these full circle things. And these people are like to me, again, I look up to them, right? The baddest motherfuckers on the face of the earth, right? These Navy SEALs, right? And the stuff they've done, the stuff they've lived through. And so I'm like, oh, wow, these guys are talking about it. I can talk about it. And they're also the guys that set me straight. Marcus Luttrell did. He said, you need to stop talking to you're just a football player, because I had this imposter syndrome that I'm with these guys and I was a football player. How am I messed up, right? Yeah, I've got some brain damage. How do I have PTSD? How do I have all this stuff? And he's like, you need to shut up that you're just a football player, right? What it does to your brain and how we look at things, right? We're the same, we did different jobs. And so it took someone like that I looked up to and respected to tell me to like, hey, you knock that shit off.
Dude, it's funny hearing that too, because I felt that imposter syndrome when we connected, because I'm just a mid-rate pro skier. You're an NFL player, but there doesn't have to be a qualifier. It doesn't have to be a qualifier no matter what level you're at. We're just humans. one of the components of your story, and something that might be seen as radical, but you're normalizing it, is the form of treatment that you received in the realm of psychedelics. So specifically Ibogaine. I guess first, can you share with the listeners, what is Ibogaine? What was your path to finding it?
So Ibogaine itself is a rookbart, African tree root. So it's the bark of that root, and what it is the high power psychedelic there is, right? So everyone or a lot of people know about psilocybin, ayahuasca. It's a little more mainstream known about, but Ibogaine has been around just as long, been used just as long, but is so much more powerful than both of those. And I found it through the podcast. I was listening to Team Never Quit podcast that Marcus Luttrell does. Marcus and Amber Capone were on there, and Marcus was talking about his journey, right? College football player, Navy SEAL, alcohol abuse, rage, depression, suicidal ideation, all these things. And I'm like, this is me, right? Literally me talking on this podcast. And so I just took it was at a time that I was struggling, and I took a shot, and I emailed his foundation, and him and his wife called me, a day later. And so that started my journey, and they had educated me on what Ibogaine was. I had no idea. I barely smoked marijuana in my life, right? I knew nothing about psychedelics. I'd heard of them. I obviously knew nothing about Ibogaine, but I trusted him instantly because of who he was, the connection we had just from talking. And that led me to go down with a group of his friends, veterans, special op veterans, and do Ibogaine, like 3 weeks after we were talking. And so for me, it was more of a trust thing. I didn't care, right? My doctor told me, hey, you can't get off your antidepressant this fast, right? All these medications I was on to try and help, I needed to wean off them. And I said, I have 3 weeks. I actually have a week because I need to be clean for 2 weeks before I go down and do Ibogaine, because it can counteract with your heart, send you into cardiac arrest. And so I went cold turkey. I said, I don't care. If it doesn't kill me, I don't care. I'm doing it. And that was just where I was in my healing journey. I needed the help then. And I completely trusted in Marcus and Amber for what they were telling me, and knew I was going with the right people. And so that's what, really started my healing journey.
That's so cool. And it's amazing the power that you found in Ibogaine, but I also hear some of the like superpower that you have within yourself of like channeling the intensity and these things that help you succeed in football into healing, of being like, no, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going all in. And it's kind of like in that realm of like using that all or nothing side of ourselves, like rather as a like, let's suppress that, but like, let's use this for good. Like, how do you think that's also like continued on, like as you've received more Ibogaine treatment, and what does that actually look like?
Yeah, for me, it was, and I was that way when I trained, everything was all in, whether it was drinking beers after the game, right? We'd drink 10, 20 beers, it was just, everything was all in. When we trained hard. Right. And so when I found healing, they told me like, hey, this is not a magic pill. Like, this is, you got to do the work. Right. So I'd never meditated in my life ever. Thought it was corny. I thought it was hokey. I thought it was woo woo. Right. But I'm like, if they're telling me I need to do this, then I'm going to do it. Right. So I learned, took years to figure out. Right. Finally took being on a mountain on a snowmobile out in the middle of a snowstorm, seeing all the snowflakes coming down one at a time, to realize, oh, this is a form of meditation. My therapist told me that. She's like, you understand what that is, right? And I was like, I could see every single snowflake, right, as I'm zipping up this mountain. And that was the opening moment for me, because I thought you had to sit with your legs crossed, right, go into this place, and I'd never been there. And so doing all these things, right, it was, for me, it was like it's just who I am. And now it's in a healthy way, right? Like, I want to be healthy. I want to improve my life, my thought process. I want to stay feeling like I have been post Ibogaine. And so doing these things helps me stay in that realm, and it just makes me a better person.
Kind of beyond the realm of just psychedelics, beyond the realm of Ibogaine, I think something else that really stands out to me in your story, and also how we've connected, are these ways that you take care of yourself. Like, you're speaking to meditation and believing like, oh, if this is going to help me, I'm going to go all in on it. I love your morning routine. Take me through your daily morning routine.
Yeah, those things are the things that I learned help me, right? It started out, getting up early and doing a certain thing. Then I didn't have enough time before my kids got up. I felt like I was still getting triggered, or I wasn't in the space I wanted to be when my kids got out of bed. So it really, for the past year, it's come to like 4 a.m. is my wake up, right? It gets like alarm goes off at 4, and I'm not a snooze guy, like 4 a.m., feet on the floor, right? Getting up. And so then I go down. The first thing I do is get in my cold tub. I got a cold tub that creates ice. It's 33, 34 degrees, right? So by 4:10, 4:12, 4:15 at the latest, I'm in the cold tub, right? So I do my 3 to 6 minutes in there, right? Wakes me up, gets my nervous system in check. So there's days I wake up anxious or wake up, activated. It calms me down. And so I get out of that. Then I go into, a fireplace in our living room. I sit and do a little meditation, a short meditation, like 20 minutes while I warm up. And then I got really deep into the Wim Hof breathing, so that's how I think helps not only in the morning to activate me, but also to calm my mind down. And so I do a Wim Hof session, do 2 or 3 rounds of that. And then I'm ready to train. So then I go into our gym. We luckily have a gym at our house, and my wife's up by that time, and we go in and we get a workout in. I use Chris Doyle is my strength coach in college, still a close friend. He writes a program for me, and I go in and get an hour to an hour and a half of training, right? It depends on the day. And it's like same thing. He gives me he sends me the routine, and that's what we do. And then once that done, our kids are starting to get up for school, and I'll, help with them. Some days my wife takes care of it, and then I'll do I have a grounding mat, so in the winter I sit in front of a light, and a grounding mat to get the sunlight. Now that it's getting nicer, I get outside, put my feet in the dirt, get the sun as it's coming up, rising, to get that sunlight. And then within the morning too, I have a hyperbaric chamber to help with the brain stuff and body recovery. And I get my hyperbaric chamber for an hour. So that's typically, every morning during the week. And there's not much variation. There's this, it's very scheduled. It's very, stuff that I've learned that helps me. And then on top of other things throughout the day, right? At night, I get in the sauna every night before I go to bed. I stop watching TV, by 7 o'clock if we are watching TV. So I'm very calculated on what I do, because I've learned over the past few years what puts me in prime position to be the best person I can be throughout the day.
Dude, that is so cool. And a lot of what I hear in there too is kind of the anti-silver bullet. And, even the way that I asked about Ibogaine, like sometimes psychedelics are seen as this kind of like, this is just going to fix the problem. And that's not what Ibogaine is. And sometimes like some of these other elements, like cold plunging or Wim Hof breathing, sometimes like, especially in like the manosphere, it's like, this is going to fix all your problems. And it's like, no, actually what fixes all your problems is consistency, discipline. And like this, I call it my mental health toolkit. So it's cool to see like how well built out yours is.
Yeah, and you learn that, right? I've learned that through this. It is not, there's nothing that's a magic pill. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's psychedelic drugs, whether it's, breathing, any of that it's all a tool, right? And it helps you, especially with psychedelics. It got me farther ahead. It got me out of the suicidal ideation. It got me able to talk about my feelings. So it was a tool to get me months and months ahead of anything that was working for me, right? It's something I revisit every now and then, because it's a tool that helps you stay where you need to be. And once you've felt good, for me, once I got in a good space, now I'm kind of addicted to that. Like I want to feel, right? The days that I do have a little brain fog, I'm like, it's hard, because I'm no, I want to feel like I did before. So I dig deeper into my toolbox to try and fix it, right? And sometimes it doesn't fix it, but it's then having those tools when things pop up, because life isn't, sunshine all the time, right? There's things that are going to happen. I'm going to get activated. I'm going to get angry. I'm going to get depressed, right? But how do you deal with that and use the tools rather than just floating through life? That's not realistic.
100%. Man, that's so cool. So one of the kind of like serendipities of us hanging out right now too is that yesterday I was at your kid's school as a guest speaker on mental health. And in a similar way, like I shared with the kids my mental health toolkit, because they asked like, what are the different ways that I take care of myself? And I just like keep going through the list, and I'm like basically explaining to them my entire lifestyle. I'm like, oh wow, this list like keeps on going. And one of the things that like I try to always remember to include, especially for the kids, is that sobriety is also a foundation for me. So now I know that you've been sober for, 5 years now? Like, how is that kind of a component of this holistic part of taking care of yourself?
I think for me too was when this all started, and they I got that brain scan and they saw all the damage, and the neurologist was, he was talking about my habits, my drinking habits, amongst other things. And when he said, it's the all-in component, he said, you need to stop drinking. Like, alcohol is the number one depressant in the world, and it's terrible for your brain. And so that it clicked for me, right? It was a coping tool before, and I'm like, this guy said it's what I need to do, so I'm all in. Fine, I'm gonna work to stop drinking. And then after Ibogaine, right? Ibogaine's a huge on addiction too. It took it away from me, right? Didn't have any urge and haven't had any urge since then. So to me, it's just living at the fullest, right? I think back of the days I was hungover, right? The days that I felt like a terrible father because I was so hungover, couldn't go to my kid's soccer game, right? And I'm like, I don't ever want to feel like that again, right? And then just how my body felt itself, right? To get up at 4 a.m. every day, right? No matter what time I go to bed, right? Maybe we may be home late from an event and it's 10 or 11 o'clock and I get my 4 or 5 hours. I'm up at 4 a.m. And to get up and be like, oh, I got this, right? Like, and then I dig in my toolkit, right? Oh, I'm going to take 30 grams of creatine today because of what it does for your brain, right? Make up for that sleep. That part of it for me, the sobriety part, and it's just being the best person, right? No judgment to anyone who drinks or has a casual drink or even is a heavy drinker, but just what it does for your body, and then being a role model to my kids, like, hey, I used to be that kid. I used to be that 20-some-year-old kid in college that let's go drink beers and party, and it's fun, right? But what value does it really bring? Like all these lessons in life, like what value does that really bring to you? And having it gone, it's been the greatest thing in the world. Like, it's just feeling clear. I can go to bar. I'm not I can go sit at the bar and have a glass of water with my friends if they're happen to go there. But do I choose to go hang out? No. But if they're going to go get dinner or have a drink, there's no judgment. It's just what's best for me.
And it's the ability to still have that social connection without, partaking in the act of drinking itself. And that's pretty cool. So in a lot of this too, I first, I hear the similarities in us. Like, I would also, if I had a cold plunge I could set the temperature on, I would also set it at 33, all in. But I also see a lot of the elements of you and the discipline that made you successful as a football player. And then also, you are an Eastern Iowa farm boy, and that still shines through in you. How do you think the lessons from growing up on the farm and then from your football career are now ones that you can apply to how you take care of yourself and how you've grown as a human being?
Yeah, it starts with how I was raised, right? Came from a great family of 4 siblings, loving parents that are still married, that were farmer. My dad was a farmer and my mom was a nurse, and just the value of the Midwest, right? It's different. Like, no disrespect to California or other parts of the country, right? But it's different there, right? And I've taken people back that are born and raised in California, like, well, everybody's super nice, and it's just people are different here, right? And I have great friends in California. Don't get me wrong. There's every part of the country probably feels that way, like I do about the Midwest, about their part of the country. But those values, and seeing how my dad lived his life, what he did for us is, right, we never knew they were struggling. We never knew that they weren't making any money farming for multiple years in a row. We always had shoes. We always had food, right? It was just a constant go to work, right? And not complain, like discipline, do the things right, and good things will happen to you. And so taking that into college, that's how you become successful. Like, hey, this is how we got to do it, right? You got to do full bore. You got to do the best you can and see what happens, right? It doesn't mean you're going to be the best there is, but that's what we're going to work for. And so going through that and using that in my career, I try and use it as a father, and then, getting done and trying to find who I was and what is my purpose, right? That's why I started Athletes for Care, my foundation, is because I want to help other guys deal with where I was, right? Like, none of us talked about it. None of us did that. So when I started sharing, I'm like, man, this is another thing that's all in. Like, we're here to help, right? It's the Midwest value. You help your neighbor, right? You wave at someone on the road, the country road, even though you don't know them, right? So it's part of that giving. And it's like, I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. Like, is it easy? Is it fun at times? No. But is it hard here and telling my story or listening to other people's suffering? No, but it brings value to who I am, and I know I can help them. That's just the right thing to do when you've lived through something, to help others get through it and not suffer as much.
Dude, absolute gold. See those Eastern Iowa values come through in who you are and the ways that we've connected as well. I guess very unsurprisingly, those Midwest values and then also the discipline that carried you through your football career are what you continue on with now and in helping other people. So with Athletes for Care, what's some of the impact work that you do, and what's something that makes kind of this farm boy and football player in you smile about how you're helping other people?
I think for me, first of all, it helps me, right? It helps me to continue to live my life, to be able to talk about these things, be open enough, right? To talk to others about it. And when you share your story, it brings out stories from other people. And so when I started the foundation, right after I opened up to my friends, right, I went and did Ibogaine and had this huge life transformation. Open up to my friends about it, and they're like, "Oh, I struggled in this aspect, or I did this." And I was like, "Oh, wow, it's not just me," right? Because we all just say it's us, or we isolate because it's like it only happened to me. I'm the only football player ever to have, CTE symptoms, right, and depression and suicidal ideation. I'm the only one, right? But that's how it is in your head. And so when you hear other stories, for me, it was like, man, first of all, this feels good, right? Because it's helping me to sit here and talk about it. But also, like when someone else calls you and is like, "Hey, thanks for being vulnerable. Thanks for talking about that," because I'm sitting at home suffering myself, right? And it's gone as far with, some of the outreach people have reached out to us at Athletes for Care is like, "Hey, I had a couple guys say, hey, you saved my life today. Like, just we did a call and they were in that space, right? To where they were where I was. And I mean, that's huge, right? The days that I get frustrated about trying to raise money and do these things to be able to help people, right? Because that's part of a foundation, right? You got to raise money. You got to be able to hire people. I want to send guys to get treatment, so I get stressed out with that. And then you get a phone call from someone that's like, dude, thanks for talking about this. Like you're doing God's work. I heard you on your podcast, right? You helped me in this moment, and I'm forever thankful. And it leads to them talking, and maybe leads to them, right? We've sent guys down to get Ibogaine treatment, right? If that's what they need, but it's also the lifestyle, right? The toolbox, like, well, hey, I do this, right? Guys want knowledge. There's a lot of guys like us that want help. And once you learn how to ask, right, there are people that want to help you and things that can help you.
100%. And one of the cool components of Athletes for Care too is facilitating and helping people get that psychedelic treatment, specifically with Ibogaine. I think that's really cool too because it's creating this other pathway to a really important mode of care. What's that been like, kind of opening that door? And I know that it's also brought you, to psychedelic treatment conferences and all sorts of stuff like that.
I think it's very eye-opening, right? Because I went through DARE like you did, the DARE program, and it's a drug, right? Still, people call it a drug, and I call it medicine because it is medicine, right? Yes, it's classified as a drug, and all those things that we're trying to change, right? I was part of the initiative in Texas that got $50 million to study Ibogaine, right? I'm a part of these advocacy groups to hey, this is a medicine. That Ibogaine is not something you do recreationally, right? We're not going to pop some Ibogaine and go do some laps. Like this is a work retreat. You're doing work on your mental health, fixing your brain. And so being a part of that, it's like opening my eyes. And even for my kids, it's like, hey, there's more things than just your standard medicine, right? I was on those medicines and I haven't been back on a pharmaceutical since I did Ibogaine, right? That stuff was toxic. It was coming off. It was the most wretched thing there was. So it's not good for you, right? And not that Ibogaine is for everyone, but to be able to show people, hey, there are other options. Because I did 2 years of all the other stuff, the pharmaceuticals, the modern day treatment, until I found psychedelics and the work it does. And now, not only that, right? We like proof, right? So they're studying it, right? Stanford did a study on Ibogaine. Like there is scientific data behind how this stuff is working. And then the biggest thing for me is seeing real life situations, right? I've seen, you know, Marcus Luttrell, Marcus Capone, different guys, right? I've met some of these special ops guys before they went in for Ibogaine and seeing the person they are before and after. I mean, if you don't believe that, then you're crazy. Then you won't believe anything, because I've seen humans that couldn't function, that with PTSD, the TBI symptoms, all these things that couldn't be in a room. And now, one guy that I'm thinking about, right? Like saw him a few months ago at the Vets Gala. He's got flip-flops on, just the biggest smile on his face, came up and gave me a hug and told me he loved me, right? Like it's like to that and what I had seen before he went, right? It was a guy in the corner that everyone was like watching him to make sure nothing happened, right? And so to see that and to see how they live their life now and these people talking out, that's the proof for me and why I keep talking about it and why let other people know there are other options, because I had gone through all the other options And I was to the point where I'm like, I'm not living like this, right? I'm not putting my family through this. And for you to say that, and I believed it, you know, that there was a point where I was going to screw up and take my life because I felt so bad how my family was suffering because of me. And then I found this because those people picked up the phone, right? Marcus and Amber, and they invited me 3 weeks later to get treatment. And that led me on my journey.
Beautiful. I love the way that you speak about Ibogaine, about psychedelics, about mental health, about being human. I have the world of respect for you. And I know that I've learned so much from just the short amount of time that we've been able to connect. And I'm just so grateful that your voice is one that so many people get to learn from now. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. And it's like, it's mutual, right? Because I still have imposter syndrome, right? It's like, you know, Cody Townsend connected us, right? Because I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, this guy's had to have gone through stuff, right? You search for people like yourself. And that led, you know, through him led me to you. And like, it's instant. You can tell instantly that you have the same values, the same, you know, the same mindset. And we can have those conversations that, you know, anyone else that got on this chairlift, this gondola, you wouldn't be comfortable having it because they don't really get it. And that's okay. But when you find someone like that, it's very eye-opening and very healing.
Yeah, we might have scared strangers if we let them on the gondola with us.
That's typically how it goes.
But now they can listen to this on their own time. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
All the love in the world for you.
You too. Appreciate you. Appreciate you very much.
Hell yeah. Dude, that was awesome. Massive thanks to Robert for joining me for our little gondola gab. It was really fun to get to have a little bit longer episode for this one. We ended up riding the base-to-base gondola at Palisades Tahoe both ways because we were jamming and we just wanted to keep the conversation rolling. As you may have caught on, Robert happens to live in Lake Tahoe, and yep, he snowboards. And I'm going to have to snowboard with him one of these times. Man, it is hard to distill my takeaways from that conversation. Robert and I hung out for a while before pushing record and talked a bit more about football and our personal lives. And I'm just super grateful to get to learn from him. I think that his voice and his story is one that can help a lot of people and already has. So I guess that's my biggest takeaway. We need a lot of different voices and stories to shift culture. And Robert is going to be that to impact a massive wealth of people, and especially men. I'm releasing this conversation today because May was Mental Health Awareness Month. If you followed me for a while, you may have heard me say this before. Mental health awareness is not just a month. It's an everyday 24/7, 365 thing for guys like Robert and myself. So I wanted to carry that over out of May. Now that it's June, guess what? It's Men's Health Month. And I feel like Robert is the perfect male role model to kick off conversations about men's mental health this month. You can check out more from Robert and support his nonprofit at athletesforcare.org. I also recommend reading the feature story about Robert's journey from The Athletic in the New York Times. That's linked in the show notes, along with Robert's website and socials. Thanks to this episode's sponsor. Any discounts from any of the podcast sponsors are available on my website or wherever links live. Follow me and the show on Instagram at Drew Peterski, and you can also subscribe to the weekly newsletter for the show via Substack. And of course, all of the above is linked in the show notes. That's it for this ride. Thanks for listening to the Drew Peterson Podcast. Until next round, keep your tips up. Ski and enjoy, my friends.